computer. So I think what I'm going to do is just shut that off because I don't think we're going to, I guess they still haven't fixed it. Enough of that. All right, so you'll need to go into Zoom. The invitation is there in the, it's over there in the, mouse goes down. There we go. Okay, and we got some voice. All right, good. All righty. Now we're over here at week 2, 9496, and again, just so that you kind of get what's going on, you've got this one exam that's due on the 6th, and then you have some links here, some sites. Let me see what I've got here. Hi, Joshua, glad to see you. And we've got, I have some sites or some links for you to, I kind of try to follow a theme. And there are a couple of themes there. One of them deals with the use of haptic features now in machines and folks using them. I can swipe, so forth. That's not a big deal. This is all, here's an interesting bit of information about Facebook and network dynamics and how they've used that to build that company. Then virtual assistants. This is another of these human-machine interface issues where we have these virtual assistants where we speak to them and they respond and all that business. And then I have 3 sites that focus in on the use of databases and data administration as a way to do good in the world. And these are tracking landmines and unexploded ordnance that are all over the world, and I think these people do great work. Now, the other thing that we're working our way through is to do access workshop number 4, and we'll talk about that because we've looked at the whole idea of a data warehouse, and the idea that a data warehouse is made up of a set of tables. It could even be a set of other databases, but that warehouse is a place I go to procure information, data, so I can crank it into information and turn it into information. And that's going to be a constant thing. Now, I want to walk us over here for just a moment, and we're going to start to move into the part of the course where we work with the lunches database, and that's from this text, the Patrick text, and we'll be writing some SQL. And basically, I have every chapter has a set of code, and we have a let me just back up. There's an access database in there that we have, and I have them in the files. And what we'll do is we'll take some code and we'll slap it in and run some queries and build some tables, and you'll get a little bit of a familiarity with Microsoft Access. Now, the nice part in you working with structured query language or SQL or SQL is that you have the opportunity to also see how Oracle works. And as we come to the end of the course, I'll have an opportunity, if people want to download to their machine a baby version of Oracle so you can see that product. One of the frustrations sometimes that I run into is that I'll get someone who, maybe an alum who will write me back an email and said, we use this product, and there are a lot of products out there, database products, and what I really try to focus on instead is understanding why I use the database and how it's basically structured, and the concept of the data warehouse, and then the concept which feeds into this whole idea of a dashboard. And really the best that I can do for you would be to just simply show you the basics, so when you plug into something at a company, you're able to work with it, and it's not foreign territory to you. You understand. Now, the truth is that, especially if you go to work at a large corporation, your access to tabled or stored data will be will be you'll have a set of parameters based upon a whole host of things like your security clearance, your rank in the company, where you are in terms of the hierarchy, that type of business. And also in terms of the types of data that company might collect. So I try to give you that database administrator's perspective so you kind of understand the back office piece of this, so that when you're out communicating with those folks, you understand and you get it. So when we start working with the SQL and running, and we'll just basically, we're going to have a database that has tables, and we're going to take code and slap it into a query engine, and then run the query and look at the results, sets, and that type of thing. But doing that in that Patrick text, which is again this one, we're also going to see that a lot of Microsoft Access SQL, structured query language, is the basis for Oracle. So when you go out to work, you'll be able to say to an employer, yeah, I understand what Oracle looks like, because they're just basic tweaks, a little bit of tweaking here or there. I think we have an exercise for you where we'll do, I think, SAS Visual Analytics, if I'm not mistaken, and you'll have an opportunity if you want to do Oracle. Now, one of the reasons I have this first set of workshops, these 4, is to acquaint you with the idea of a data warehouse. What is it supposed to mean? Now, when you hear the term data mart, you should say, okay, it's like a small Walmart where I can get some more specialized stuff. And the data warehouse, of course, is the big one. And a data warehouse typically means all of the data that are available to a company. Now, they're going to run in some types. One of them is going to be transaction processing. Okay, we sell stuff and we record it and we put it into a database. Some of it's going to be maybe current data, maybe stuff that we scrape off the web and Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, to see what people are saying about us. Stock market data, the price of your stock, all of that type of stuff, and it will pop up and you'll see a dashboard. Now, before we go too much further, I do want to have us go up for a moment and just take a look. Let's do just a quick search, and let's see what some of these dashboards look like. Because when you encounter them, you should understand what you're looking at and have a good sense. Now, they have some for each of these. Let's take a look, for example, at a CRM. Okay, and they should give us some examples, and we'll explore this one. They're wanting me to give them their name. Okay, but if you don't want to sign in full with all that, but you can notice right here they've got a dashboard that deals with call center representative efficiency. So this is a piece of their CMR, their customer maintenance, their customer relationship, CRM marketing, and basically trying to say, okay, how fast do we handle calls? Do we get a resolution? All of that type of business. Everybody's going to have we all have a dashboard of one type or the other. And again, the whole point of it is to understand the basis for it has got to be that data warehouse where you've defined what are the key variables or dimensions of our business, what are the key things or events that happen, so that we have the transaction data and we have the dimensional data. And we'll talk about that again. Now, you say you keep talking, it just sounds so simple, and it really truly is. The hard part is working through the dimensions more than anything in terms of what should I be collecting. In other words, when we look in here and we see some of these dimensional tables, we're going to talk, okay, what channel, marketing channel, did the purchase occur? What products were sold? What dates? should I have dimensions that are based on weeks, months? How should I do it? These are all questions that are simplistic, but they really do eventually go to the heart of your business, which is your value proposition. What is it that you do that convinces people to use your service or product service bundle and pay you? And that's really what it boils down to. So you can take a look at some of these. Here's some for a help desk. And you can notice, as you see, it's got some visual cues, got a bar graph there, a couple of pie charts. One of the reasons that we in 1123 I have everybody use the Stephen Few text is so that you become visually literate when you look at data. I was in a meeting, I won't say where it was, but they put up, but someone put up a bar chart, and unbelievably, this is supposed to be percentages represented on bar chart, and unbelievably, we had percentages that exceeded 100%. How we did it, I don't know. But I looked and I started adding and go, well, that's more than 100%. And no narrative or anything to explain why I'm looking at it. I thought, well, this is interesting. One of the other things they were comparing, it was a categorical analysis, and rather than using different colors for each category, they all were the same color. That's someone obviously who didn't know what they were doing. Well, here's some help desk. Here's another CMR tracker. This is more in the form of a database. Here's an analytics dashboard. And you could go out and you could see all of those. You're going to see so many examples. And why are we doing this? Well, here's what's going on. And I think let's do this for just a moment. And let's see, go to the files section over here in Canvas. And I want to see if I loaded Anscombe's quartet, because I certainly do talk about it in 1123. Okay, and I'm going to see, do I have it in there? No. If you go out on the internet and you look for Anscombe's quartet, ANSCOMBE, what you'll find is that Anscombe wrote an article, this is way back in 1973, in American Statistician, in which he said, we're developing these tools that have such robust capabilities, meaning we can crunch a lot of numbers in a lot of different ways, but we have yet to master the way to visually depict what we get. And human beings tend to respond to visual data faster and better than they do to tabular data, because we're people. We're used to looking and seeing patterns. Back out in the days of the savannah, when we were out wandering around on a Thursday morning after a nice, cool, refreshing rain, we learned to scan the horizon. And the minute we saw the signature of an unfriendly beast that outweighed us, and if we weren't weaponed, we headed for the high ground or headed to find a place to hide. We're used to seeing things in patterns or signatures. Now, so Anscombe said what we need to do is develop our visual literacy as well as we develop, as much as we develop our analytical abilities to just simply crunch numbers. So that article was almost prophetic. And if you go today and you look at the idea of a dashboard, all of it is about signature recognition, recognizing patterns, seeing them, and understanding what you're looking at. If you leave here and you understand that, if you understand, for example, that different businesses, that the phenomena that occur within them will have some different distributions, you're ahead of about 95% of the people you're working with. You understand far more about that business. In management science, those of you who are taking it with me or who have taken it, we use the solver, and we see there are three basic tools that are within solver. One is the simplex, the LP, that assumes the data are distributed on a linear basis. Then we have the nonlinear tool that assumes that data are either concave or convex, typically. And then we have the evolutionary model that says we don't know what this distribution looks like. But if I don't know the data distribution, I can't really analyze or understand it. And so that tool is really about helping us see that and think about it. If I own a restaurant, I intuitively understand that if I sat down and I built a I built a scatter chart where I had volume of business and time, I'd notice that it looks a lot like an S curve of sorts, or kind of a series of steps or plateaus. The reason being that people come and eat, they leave. They come and eat it a second time, they leave. Understanding that means I have to be thinking about how do I ramp up for that, and then how do I use the down periods that I come into. So there's a lot more here than might meet the eye. And I would recommend, if you haven't seen it, I think I've preached about the ANSCOM before. We'll just do a real quick search out there. And there is his quartet. And here's the gist of it. In his article in American Statistician in 1973, ANSCOM provided 4 sets of data which had the same summary statistics, okay? The same median, mode, average, same mean, median, mode, and then he charted them, and they looked dramatically different. And his point was that that summary data and table data can fool us into thinking things look alike, but they don't. And it's startling when you sit and you realize, wow, okay? And I'm convinced that sometimes, say for example, in the financial services industry, people get so married to an XY chart environment that they may miss some patterns if they took that same data and ran it through another visualization. But who knows? Okay, let's get back to business here, and we'll take a look, and we're going to go into the files here, and we're going to find the file for, we're going to work on this 4th Access workshop. And so we'll go down here and take a look, and we'll find it here. And I think it's another one of these where we did there's the data warehouse 1. We'll pop through here. There's a geographic sales AW3, and I think we'll find a 4 down here. And I apologize, I should have just simply grabbed it. Now, while we're at it, in fact, we may just go ahead and do this in. While we're at it, let's go ahead and find that Northwind Traders, and go ahead and download it to your desktop. So let's just download it, okay? And you're following along, and I'm going to throw it into a folder. And then I'll throw this over here, and here's my Northwind Traders, okay? I'll close it off, and now let's open it back up. And just to get us going here, we had that little login thing, and then I want you to notice we have a crude but thoughtful type of dashboard. This is something that Microsoft created for people to get familiar with Access. It's kind of like, try it and drive it, that type of bit. Northwind Traders is a sales organization, as you can see. So they're all about input and output, okay? Inventory in the door, inventory out the door. They're sales. They don't do a lot of processing with the information. They're a distributor, would be what we would call them. And notice from the dashboard, how do I know so much about their business? Because I know what's important every time I open this up. Let's take a look at it. We've got the active orders. Sure, if I got business out there that's pending, then inventory. If I don't have inventory, I can't order, I can't sell it. And if I run out of inventory, and when we took the business problem analysis and we worked through the issue of economic order quantity, I want to make sure that I don't have too much inventory on the floor, but I have just enough to meet my orders. And that in itself, just-in-time inventory and all of that has become almost like a cottage industry. But I want to make sure I don't have too much, and I want to make sure at the same time I don't have too little. So I want to know how much do I need to reorder. And then I have some quick links, okay, over here to each of the sales reports, shippers, employees, and I can pop over and say, and those are the dimensions or the pieces of the business that I'm interested in and are critical. I can tell you this, 99.9% of the time, if I can go into a company's database and I don't know their name or anything about them, I can tell you in about 5 minutes what they do. Because the database essentially, and then the dashboards that result from it and the reports show us the flow of data. And just like all of you, I think, have had 2 accounting courses, you by now have had it beaten in your head that money flows in particular ways through accounts. And that's why we can audit. We can do audit trails. Finance will tell you the same way. If you do a statement of cash flows, you're looking at how did the money come in? What did I do with it? What have I got left over? It's the same thing with a data warehouse. We can see the flow. And here I can see what's important to this company, what they do. The dashboard tells me that. Now, I'm going to close that off for just a second and go back over here. And I want to see if I can find our Access Workshop 4. And if not, we'll just create one so we'll be in good shape. And I should have made a note of it today. That's my fault, not yours. So we may play with it a little bit anyway. What we're going to do in 4 is we're just going to simply take some data and transform them again, just like we did in 3. And let's walk up here for just a second. My apologies. If not, we'll wing it and we'll have some fun with it. Let's see if I can find it there. Well, let's just do this. I'm going to go ahead and diminish my browser for a second. I'm going to go back into Northwind Traders. I'm going to open it up. Okay. And let's go ahead and close off. Let's do this. Let's view the orders, and you'll see over on the quick links. Let's go to the view the orders, and let's see what orders we have pending. Okay. Now, the table data here, yeah, they're pretty simple. The order date, the status, the salesperson, the customer, the shipping date, the shipping, the taxes, total. All right. In each one of these Access workshops, first we talked about, all right, what kind of critter am I looking at over here in the objects? Okay. And what have I got over here in terms of display? Now, this order list, if I'm concerned about wanting to look at, what were the dollar values of the orders I had for a particular period, etc. Again, most working professionals are going to tell you, take the database, use it for what it is, which it's a place to collect stuff, and take the fact table, which is what this order list really is, excuse me, because it has dimensions plus events. So when you're out at work and somebody says a fact table, if you hear that, what they're saying is there's a dimension, there's something, who, what, when, where, how, and then a how much, an event, some type of transaction, or some type of interaction. You might even have, if you're a really, really large company, you may even have a vendor database where you track contacts with your vendor, your vendor's performance, did they deliver the stuff when they said it would, how much was defective, all of that. Just as much as if you're a supply chain company, I guarantee you will, because you'll be sensitive to that as much as you're sensitive to what's going out the door. And you'll be sensitive to the fact that if these folks aren't supplying me, then if they aren't getting the stuff to me in time, I can't get it to my customer, and everything becomes a big problem. Sometimes when there are perceived shortages, and you can go out on the internet and study it, this is not a course in production management or anything of that sort, but sometimes when there's a perceived shortage, especially at the retail end, okay, there becomes what we know is called a bullwhip effect. And that bullwhip effect is people start ordering too much. They begin to hoard. And what happens is the system gets depleted as everybody starts overproducing and sending the stuff down. And remember I said a perceived shortage, and then suddenly you have all kinds of inventory sitting on your shelf. All right, so let's take this order list, all right, and I'm going to close the home off, and I'm going to take the order list and let's close it off, and we'll find it here. We'll go down here and we have the order list, and I want to export it out of Access, okay? So we're going to find them. So we find the order list and then pop it out of here. Now I'm going to do another one here that's kind of has me interested, and this is product sales quantity by employee. There's a couple of and date. Okay, so I'm going to export that. You go ahead and export, and I'm going to browse. I'm going to put it up there on my desktop. Okay, I'll click OK, and it should be out on the desktop of my computer. All right, and there it is. Now, you could do the order list, or you could do any one of these that are really fact tables. All right, let's look at this for just a minute. Now, I've got the key ingredients here in terms of the product, the name, quantity. All right. Now, I would ask myself, where do I start my analysis? Okay. And one of the reasons I wanted to walk you through this fourth workshop, and regardless of whatever you exported out, upload it for Access Workshop 4. Okay. So you get that credit. So I don't care in particular. I don't care what fact table or semi-fact table you upload. What I care about is you understand what we do with it. Now I've got it out now into what we would call an analytical engine and a visualization engine. Excel does that. I can put this. I could probably, the first thing I might want to do is say, okay, how do I want to handle this? Well, that's going to be driven by what's important to me, or what I might perceive would be an important issue. Now, typically, you're going to have a routine that you follow. If you use a proprietary product like SAS, for example, you'll follow their regimen. They will tell you, here are the databases you'll have, here's the data you'll have, here's how you'll go in and drill down that data, drill across, drill diagonally. Here are the queries you'll run at a given level. SAS has it set up for retail environments, and you can go out and see it's about, I think, a 150-page manual. And SAS tells you if you don't do it like this, you're not going to get the maximum benefit from our product. So I've got some choices here. I've got order date, I've got the employee name, the sum of the quantity, the product name, okay? And where do I want to start? Now, typically, and I'm just kind of giving you a template, I start with a drill down. And that is, I say, okay, I want to bear down into some piece of this data. So let's start with one that's very obvious, and that's going to be the date. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put my cursor here in A1. And you can do that for your labels, your column labels, and then come all the way down through your records to the end. And then we're going to come up and we're going to use, and I'm going to do a sort and filter, okay? And I'm going to do a custom sort. You say, oh, this is very familiar. Have you done anything about? Yeah, I'm going to sort by date, the order date, and I'm just going to look to see how are things flowing month by month. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on the values, all right? Make sure my data has headers. And then in this case, I'm going to do from the newest to the oldest. I could do a custom list as I want, but I'm just going to do a very simple drill down to see orders. Now I'm ready, if I want to come back and do a second drill down. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight the columns. And this time I'm going to use a filter. And I'm going to filter all of them. Now, back when you took 1123 with me, we talked about the difference between a sort and a filter. Sorts work with columns. Filters work with records. So what I did was a first level drill down where I said, okay, I'm going to start with the dimension of date, order date. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter in that order date. And I'm going to click on here, and you could do whatever you're wanting to. And I can select all, I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to get just the January orders. Now, if I want to, I'm in a position now where I can throw this into, I can take these data, throw them into another worksheet, visualize them, use conditional formatting, put them into a chart, a bar chart, anything I choose to do. But I'm interested in what happened there in terms of a newest to oldest process in terms of orders for January. Now, you say, well, okay, would you do it for the other months? Sure. And I would then have the ability to compare them. Now, I could take the whole bunch of them and compare them. But here might be the problem. If I have a tremendous number of records, I have 5,000 records, I'm probably going to need to be thinking about that. If you have that many records, you'll be using a proprietary product that will hopefully give you enough visual acuity to see. But as you can see, all right, now I've got the sum of the quantity, right? And if I want to, now I'm going to click on this second filter that I have here, and I'm going to sort them from the largest to the smallest. Okay? And I do that, filter, and there we are. Now, I've done a first level drill down, and then a second, and then a third. Again, if you go to work for a large company and they use a proprietary product like SAS, Crystal Reports, any one of those, you'll be given a manual and you'll be told, here's what you do so that you get the data you're supposed to get, because the data are stored in such a way as to enable you to go in and harvest that data in an effective manner. Does that make any sense? I hope so. I'm going to stop for just a minute because I've been going like barking at you. Anybody out there in screencast land have a question? Any question? And let me point out to you, please note, you can, if you don't have a microphone, you can send me a chat message, and that chat message is private. And if it's something I think everybody want to hear, I can go, I've got a question here, blah, blah, blah. If it's something private, that's a different issue. Fair enough? Anybody out there have a question? And before I get away, let me greet. I see Geo6, whoever that is, Heath, Joshua, Geo8, and Red Hall. I do not know who you people are, GO6, but GO8, but glad to have you aboard, whoever you are. Anybody in here have a question? No? It's clear as mud? Is it that easy? Good. I hope so, because it truly is. This is the thing that amazes me. Now, the database, if you were a computer science student, you'd be taking a database management course, which is the computing behind all this. That's hard, but what those students don't get is the business perspective. They're just putting together a set of objects to function, okay? If you don't understand why you're doing it, I don't know. On the other hand, on your end of things, the end user, you know why you're collecting these data, why you want these reports in a certain way, because you understand your business. You have what we would call tacit knowledge, okay? Well, yeah, I guess it would maybe more like a heuristic. When you work in a particular industry for a certain amount of time, you just start to pick this stuff up. You just start to understand it and to learn it. And you have to work in an industry for a while to really grasp that. That's why a lot of large companies, they used to, I don't know if they still do it, would put management trainees, they'd have them go out and sell the product first. Why? Simple. You understood how to deal with your customers. 2, you had to know the product. And 3, you had to be able to figure out, okay, Casey Jones over here in Noble doesn't like me to call on Monday mornings. So I call on Wednesdays or whatever, or I go see Mr. Beauregard and ask about his bulldogs, or who knows, okay? You kind of get that feeling. And once you do now, you're prepared to be moved up because you can see people along with that, with the job that you're doing. Okay, now we've done that drill down, and so we can start to try to draw some conclusions about this. And I'm just looking at my screen here. Okay, you may have some different stuff, but once I've done an initial drill down, then 1 or 2 what I would call secondary drill downs, I'm ready to either do a third drill down, a tertiary drill down, or I'm ready to start to do some summative and evaluative work. So I'm going to do a tertiary drill down, a third one, and I'm going to come over to the employee name, and I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to see what, let's see, we've got Ann, we have Ann, Jan, Maria, and Michael. Okay, let's look and see at what Michael's done. And so we'll choose Michael. And there we are. Michael made had a sale, handled a transaction on the 30th, and he handled biscuit mix. Is that exciting? Maybe, maybe not. One of our graduate students in the MBA program at OBU is the manager. They produce dog food. Who's it there? Is it? I think it's Purina or one of their subsidiaries, but they make dog food. Okay, and he is excited about dog food. He can tell you everything about how it's made. And one of the things that's interesting is that the cleanliness in their dog food plant is better than most food plants, which send stuff to you and me. They have to have highly stringent standards, and their standards are higher than those for human. And I heard about everything there is to know about dog food. Okay, and I'm a dog lover, and after about an hour, I'm like you are when you hear me talk about databases. I'm going, will you ever shut up? But I understood that's why he makes the money he makes, and they probably run through $30 to $50 million worth of dog food every year over at that plant. I was back out in southeast Missouri a long time ago, down in southeast Missouri, down near the Boot Hill. Procter & Gamble had a Pampers plant, and I took the students every semester to go see how do they make Pampers? And the man who was the manager of that plant, you've never seen somebody so excited about diapers your entire life. We had a 45-minute presentation on diaper absorption. You know what I'm talking about? Have you had a little brother or sister, or you have kids? Yep. You know all about diaper absorption rates. And he gave us 45 minutes, then we walked through the plant, saw how they were made, on and on. The guy was so excited. And one of my students said, how can you be so excited about diapers? I said, when you're a parent or you take care of the kids, you'll find out. You will find out. And Pampers, just at that time, they were starting to develop the little Velcro-like kind of clip. Now, if you've changed a diaper, how many of you in this room have ever changed a diaper? Have kids? How about on a boy? Then you know on a boy, it is a particular art, isn't it? Because little boys are quite uninhibited, if you know what I mean. And you can be there changing little Johnny, and little Johnny will send you a message of happiness, if you know what I mean. So one of the things that they were working with was, how do we get these things, when you get getting cleaned, turn around, whap that baby on there. So little Johnny, is not free to roam the room or to send a message out. I thought, how could now later the guy ended up being one of the vice presidents of product development at P&G, and I understood why he did, because he was passionate about his product. Okay, so here we've got a situation where we've got this employee. He's sold biscuit mix, and so this makes me okay. Now, is there a pattern? Well, maybe. I'm going to do this. I said, okay, I'm going to go over here in product name, and okay, well, I've got the product, and I'm going to select all, and that would be, we're doing the biscuits mix, and let's just see. I've got the order dates, and I'm going to go ahead and take and deselect him, and I'm going to look at some other employees and see how they did. And I can continue to do that as I'm doing the drill down. Why? I may be asked to produce a report about our sales, the performance of our salespersons, okay? Now, I have some other options if I choose to, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the filters, and I'm going to clear those. Okay, and then I'm going to take, let's get those off, and I don't want to do the sorts anymore. So I can take these data if I care to, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start here at the labels. I'm going to go all the way down to the end of the records, and I'm going to put these, I'm going to click insert, and I'm going to throw them into a pivot table. All right, as I've told you before, information technology is, if it works, is a tool for, it's decision-centric. Now, I have a lot of trouble at times with colleagues and even with people out there, if I do some work with them, of understanding that concept. And I tell them, any piece of, any IT that you do, any report that you run, any activity involving IT in which you engage, if it's not leading you to a decision, you're wasting your time and your money. Just to run reports, it's a waste of time and money. And they'll say, what do you mean by decision-centric? And that is, I start always with the question which frustrates people. Tell me the 5 things you need to know about your company today, and you need to know every day. And if you can't tell me that, you probably don't have much of a strategic plan, and you probably don't understand your value proposition. Let's take OBU for example. What would be one thing I would want to know every day if I was, say, Dr. Whitlock? Well, in his role, given that he raises money, I might want to call the folks over in OBU marketing, whoever they may be, and say, what does the sentiment analysis look like for us today? What? What are people saying about OBU out on Twitter and Facebook and Yelp and Yammer and Jammer and the Kardashians and all that. What are they saying about all of you? Any bad stuff, good stuff? That's interesting. How many of you use Twitter? No Twitter people? I see one. Dr. Whitlock has an account and he throws out stuff in Twitter. Stuff that's happened. I think we had something about the volleyball team won yesterday. And buildings are built and stuff like that. Companies will gauge their sentiment analysis. What are people saying about us today? Well, here we've got this, and we're going to use a new worksheet. And you've had 1123 with me, and again, we're back to that process where we can throw these variables in, these dimensions and these quantities, and play around with them and look at them and get a picture. So I'm going to, just for kicks, I'm going to take order date and I'm going to throw it over here as a column because it fits. And I'm going to take the sum of the quantity, and those will be values. Now, if I want, I've got months, and so I can take months and put them over here in rows. And then if I want to, I can use the filter function, and I think what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to put the product name as a filter. Now, in Microsoft Excel, the two most powerful pieces of that application are the solver. You say, why the solver? If you haven't had management science, you'll understand that immediately, I hope. If you haven't, here's the news. Solver lets me plug variables in to minimize, maximize, or hit a target value. It forces me to build a model of variables that I'm going to change, and then my constraints. And it allows me, if I want, to simulate an operation as many times as I want to. And I can simulate just about any type of business operation. That's why it's so powerful. The other one, more powerful one, or just as powerful, is a pivot table, because the pivot table lets me mix and match variables, and it gives me a database with an analytical engine or mathematical engine, and I don't have to do a whole lot of work. There are a lot of folks who say the pivot tables probably is the most powerful feature. I don't believe that. I believe that's Solver, because I believe if you use Solver, when students take my class, it's my deep prayer that they hear something very important, and that is, when I make a decision, it's not black or white. When I make a decision, it's on a continuum of possible outcomes, ranging from, oh my God, it's a disaster, to hallelujah, Lord, this is great. And those are all in between. And it gives you the opportunity to say, what's most likely to happen if I follow this course of action? Now, there's a book in the Bible that deals with that, and it's called Proverbs. Proverbs tells you, if you continue down a certain pathway or doing things, it's very likely that natural consequences and eventually the good Lord will catch up with you. If you cheat people, it'll catch up with you. Now, there was a famous English poet named Anthony Hopkins who wrote some poetry. Maybe you heard about him in Civ, but one of his famous poems is about, as a youth, he goes out, he has a little libation, he gets a little drunk, he's out in nature, he's enjoying everything, he's out there. And then in his days, you could see the stars incredible, as opposed to how much the light from our cities blinds them out. And near the end of that poem, he wakes up from the reverie, And he says, I was in a ditch, basically, with my clothes torn up. I'm muddy and dirty. And he says, hi-ho, the tale was all a lie. As Proverbs says, strong drink is a mocker of people. That's your biblical integration for the day. Got it? Now, if you've heard me too, remember now about marginal utility. Okay? You see those commercials, my favorites are the Russian vodka or the vodka commercials, or there's all these beautiful people, these beautiful buildings at a party. I've never been to one of those parties yet. Maybe it's me. I think that could be. But, and they're all drinking vodka and they're looking cool. What they don't tell you is that 8 hours later, half of them are listening to country music and they're very depressed because they lost their dog, their girlfriend, truck, or both, or all three. Or they've gotten angry and their aggressive qualities come out and they got punched and all of that stuff. They never tell you the aftermath of those things. So they're lying to you. Now, they never, when Anheuser-Busch says, drink responsibly, okay, what they're saying is have enough beer so you won't show up as over the limit when you drive home. That's really what they're saying. Now, maybe not. Maybe they're really trying to say responsibly. But you and I both know that with marginal utility, there's a point where you hit the peak. And from there on, it's downhill. Okay? And the Bible tells us the same thing. You can read through Proverbs time and time again. Too much of a good thing can be too much. Well, I should take up an offering after doing that. And I'm even broadcasting it. Let me say this to all of you out there who are participating today. If you will send me a check for $150 to Dr. Harmon Ministries, Post Office Box 666, Shawnee, Oklahoma. I'm just teasing you. But I'm trying to integrate faith with learning. What can I say? And I have 7 people. Well, I'm one, so I don't have a magic number. Okay, but you can see. Now, I'm going to close this pivot table field off for just a moment. And now we start to look for patterns. And you can see there's a definitive pattern in these data. Notice how they trail off if you're looking at my screen. So I've got something that I've discovered. There tends to be some type of connection between dates and order sizes or quantities. I'm not quite sure. I could take these data and I could run a correlation on them or do a linear, use the linear function and see if that indeed is the case. And if it is, then I have a sense of order pattern, and maybe that can help me with my inventory or my supply chain, or any one of a number of those things. Now I'm going to stop and see, does anybody have any questions? How about you folks out there in screencast land? Anybody? Brett? Geo8? Caleb? Okay. Joshua? Heath? Geo6? And then me. Anybody in here have a question? Others not on there? No? Well, okay. I know it's boring stuff until the day you get a job and your boss says, by the way, can you run some reports? And I need this and this and this. And that's when the panic sets in. And you say, our Father who art in heaven. Oh, I remember now. I do a drill down, then a secondary drill down, maybe a third drill down. I might try to visualize the data, or I might try to summarize the data that I have. And I follow those steps. Now, as we move into working with the Patrick data and we write the code using the SQL, we're going to have an opportunity to do some diagonal slices. We're going to have an opportunity to take and string together multiple tables that will give us all kinds of potential insights into the data that we have. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to save it, and it's there on my, now I'm going to name it Harmon, and then I'm going to upload it here. Now I'll go over to the modules section. I didn't find the particular file, and you may find it in the files there for Access Workshop 4. The file is unimportant, except for you need to have the right type of data. What's important, though, is you understand the pattern. once you've worked, okay, let me say this. Once I've worked with somebody and I've got them to understand this concept and I've got them to understanding how to do disciplined queries, then they're at the point where they're ready as they start to get insights to say, okay, now I'm ready to do the what if analysis. What about this? What about that? A lot of times a company will get one of these products and don't fall prey to this, and they'll become query crazy. They'll want to run all kinds of queries. They'll want to run all, and most of it making no sense whatsoever. Okay. Again, this tool is decision centric. It should tell you specific things that are linked to your value proposition, which is linked to your company's strategy, which is linked to your company mission. That's how it fits. Lots easier said than done, obviously. And my greatest concern is that these products are becoming they're proliferating so fast, and they're so intuitive. Again, they have drop-down menus and tree menu, all that stuff that you've seen in Office Suite, which is the granddaddy, grandmama, whatever, progenitor of them all. But if you're not thinking about what you're doing, you may be playing with something that you're wasting a lot of time and energy because you're not using it to its maximum efficiency. And that becomes real money. There are economists out there and people in IT who've done studies of what they call productivity, the productivity puzzle. And that is, with all this IT, we still are not seeing the productivity gains we thought we'd see. And there's a reason. It's because we have human beings involved in the process, and humans can waste a lot of time on IT, not understand why they have it, not understand the capital. One of the things that's amazed me is I've taken these courses and started to transform them to a hybrid format, is some of the pushback I've gotten from students who said, I didn't sign up to take these courses. Yet, year after year, when I talk to students, they go, can you do something where if I have to go to a football game, or I'm out for practice, or I'm in Florida for a week, can you do something so I don't have to miss assignments, or we have to have an argument? Hello. I start to wonder at times, is this like the Three Bears? The porridge is too hot, the porridge is too cold. Rarely is the porridge just right. So it's interesting to me. But you should understand something. When you go out to work, in the workplace, you will encounter this. You'll see it all the time. Okay, folks, well, upload your work. That'll do it for today. And be looking for it. I may do just kind of a little web safari thing to show you some more about dashboards. I may do that. I'm not sure, or maybe some additional resources that I think will give you some benefit. I would like to encourage you, and we're down here also, to start to think ahead, because remember, you have these 2 quizzes, and then you have the 4 workshops, which you should have uploaded by here. And I really do hope that you'll go over and take a look at these 3 sites where you could see how people can utilize a database to do some real good. One of the great tragedies of the 20th century is that minds, particularly in Eastern Europe and particularly over in areas of the Middle East where there's been conflict, there are millions of minds that have been left, and children wander into them all of the time, and it's just awful. It's a horrendous tragedy. And of all the things we could do to each other, a mine is the worst, because mines are not designed to kill people. They're designed to maim them for life. And I've gone out on a couple of tours, and I can tell you what, it was hard for me to handle it emotionally when you'd see little kids who went into a field and didn't know a mine was there and set that thing off, and their life was irrevocably changed, and usually in a place that was unequipped to take care of them for life. Enough of that. Have a good weekend. God bless you. And I'll see all of you online on Tuesday. Good enough? Thank you so much. And for those of you who are out there who are not with, well, I have one that's left already. And I hope others are going to be looking in, because if they're not, they're going to be in for a surprise. All right. I'll stop the share. And we'll stop the recording.